Welcome back, Smart Start Radio family. Before we get into our latest amazing episode, we have a quick word from our sponsor. With spectacular hotels, amazing theme parks, and unparalleled entertainment, Universal Orlando Resort offers a meeting destination unlike anything else in the world. Here's a hard truth. If everything at your event happens exactly the way attendees expect it to, they may have no reason to remember it. Today for Smart Start Radio, I'm joined by EJ Corporan, Director of Growth and Marketing at Ansera, to explore how planners can break through distraction, create genuine connection, and design moments that actually stick. We're diving into the science of unforgettable events, including cognitive load, engagement, and the surprising power of awe, and why creating memorable experiences may have less to do with spending more money and everything to do with greater intention.
Smart Star Radio, Smart Star Radio. Ready, set, here we go with another episode. Watch as we learn and grow. Smart Star Radio, Smart Star Radio. Ready, set, here we go with another episode. Watch as we learn and grow. Starting smart is the action we design. Meeting of the minds, how to better use our time. Leading, interceding, proceeding, they define it.
So, EJ, first of all, thank you for being here. This is really fun for me. I hope it is for you.
Yes, of course. I love it.
So let's kind of just get into it. So what, in your opinion, makes events not something that people be like, oh, this event did not leave any impact on me? Like, what are people doing that's just not hitting the marks for events right now?
Yes, no, it's a great question, Eming. So I think one of the things that is really important when you're designing for unforgettable moments in an experience, in an event, it can be in customer service. I mean, the techniques that we'll talk about throughout this conversation can be used in a lot of different ways. But one of the ways that you can ensure that people will not remember it is if everything goes the way that they're expecting it to go. So a lot of us are moving through life kind of in this routine where we're basically 95% of the time what we expect to happen, how we expect people to behave, how we expect people to dress, like it's all lining up, right? And that is often because we're aware of the environments we're walking into. We're preparing for that, right? So if everything goes according to what your head is expecting, then there's no reason to remember it. There's nothing distinct about it. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I go to a lot of events like throughout the year, and some of them do stand out because there's like these little things that I'm just like, that felt like that was very me. I don't know how y'all knew that was me, but that is. And other ones that just like, it goes whoosh. Like, it's just like in the door, out the door, and you're done and it's gone.
Exactly. Which is a shame because somebody worked really hard to put that event together and a company spent a lot of money to put that event together. And so for it not to stick it has business implications for sure. Yeah. So we have to design for this.
Yeah. So in your opinion, based on everything that's going on, like our world is, always going somewhere in some direction, but events need to like stand out in a way that where it's like, outside of the rest of things, this event is happening and we want you to like be invested and engaged and present. So what, in your opinion, can events do to retain that interest and ultimately get the ROI and the ROE?
Oh my gosh, I love that you threw out ROE. That's so important. I think you hit on one of the most important battles that every event planner, meeting planner, event designer is tackling, which is like, who are we really competing with? I think we're competing with people's devices in their pockets, everything that they walk into the room carrying. Everybody's coming in with baggage about their jobs or their families or the responsibilities they have, their stresses and anxieties. And you've got the whole world in your pocket begging for you to look at it during a keynote or whatever, right? So like, we have to be able to create moments that are memorable. We have to be able to map the likelihood of somebody growing distracted. And a lot of that comes down to this concept of cognitive load. So do you mind if I dive into cognitive load a little bit for you? Perfect. So cognitive load essentially means like how much brain energy are you putting into staying focused and to absorbing this information. So if something is, and I'm not saying that it's bad to have a high cognitive load session, but it's important to have them be spaced out throughout the event that you're planning. So that way people have time to rest, reflect, synthesize what they've learned, and they're much more likely to remember it as a result, right? So if a keynote is going in super deep about something that's intricate or nuanced, and it's going to have a lot of new information for the attendee, that's fantastic. But you need to give them some breathing room after. So how is the day laid out? How are you giving people time to reset, reconnect, synthesize, remember what they heard, apply it to their lives, and then continue on into the next session? So creating that graph of engagement and cognitive load and creating those peaks and valleys are very important to keeping people focused.
Right. Is there like a specific format that you feel has worked and is like people can like kind of like use and like duplicate in their own way?
All of us are planning events for a specific type of person, right? So if you're working in life sciences, for example, you might have a lot of doctors in the room that are used to a certain format of how they receive information versus a sales meeting is very different. That's a different type of person, right? And so it's important, I think, to take stock of who's in the room to understand the likely attention span, which on average, people start to lose interest in a session after about 8 minutes, which is like crazy because most sessions are what, 45 minutes to an hour at least?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so we're already kind of like in a battle from the jump, right? So the best advice that I could give to overcome that is to, number one, and this is going to seem, I think, pretty expected, but ensure that your sessions are interactive and engaging and allowing people to either interact with what's going on stage or interact with one another to synthesize. I keep using that word, synthesize the information that they're hearing, because they need to be able to take what they've heard, reflect on it, and like file it away somewhere that it can be useful to them. So that would be my first bit of advice, is making sure that whenever you're developing any sort of keynote or general session or even a breakout, how is that breakout formatted? Are they being talked at the whole time, or is there an opportunity for that give and take?
One thing I'm curious about, because we talk about this a lot at Smart Meetings, like people engage differently in different ways. How do you craft an event where you're able to touch on all those points without like making it too crowded? Because like there's obviously like there's a scale effect on that. Like how do you do it to a point where it's not too much and you're like overdoing it in some way, shape, or form?
Oh my gosh, yes. No, that's a fantastic question. And I think one of the most important things to keep in mind when you're taking into account the fact that people do absorb information differently is that everything does need to kind of balance and play off of each other. I think you can accomplish quite a bit of that through like your production package and making sure that you've got screens that are accessible and visible, and then you're intentional about what's on those screens, working with your speakers to ensure that, there are some really pretty well trodden studies about the types of presentations, like the visuals that are most likely to be remembered. And they're not super crowded slides with a bunch of text on them. They're actually more often than not one sentence or even a few words that you really want people to remember. So I'd say one of the most important things is, what is it that you want people to remember, and reinforce it throughout the entire session, visually, auditorily, and otherwise, and make sure that it's balanced across all of those. I think that can help to try to not make it overkill,
Looking for a way to add some swagger to your meeting? Hold it in Dallas. You'll find 20 plus diverse neighborhoods bustling with entertainment, art, and chef's kiss worthy food. Not to mention the world's best icebreaker, the famous Margarita Mile. Whether it's a Michelin Guide recognized chef's table for 10 or seats at a big game for 1,000, Dallas is a playground for networking, team bonding, and after the meeting memorable moments. At its heart, you'll find a vibrant, walkable arts district voted #1 in America. Drop into downtown's historic Deep Ellum neighborhood for a show, or take the team and the energy to the next level atop of Uptown's stylish rooftops. Get the creative juices flowing in the colorful Bishop Arts District or any of the lower Greensville trendy hotspots. Want to energize your attendees with just the right amount of that legendary Dallas swagger? Start planning your meeting at visitdallas.com. And now, back to our show. one thing I saw on your company is the study of awe.
Yes.
How does that relate to what we're talking about?
Oh, I love this question. So awe is interesting because when when people think of awe, they probably think of this emotion that's like very difficult to explain. Like it's something that's like in your body. You're like, how do you study awe? Like, how do people feel awe? I can't create awe. What does that mean? And Ansera actually, it comes from the Latin term for goosebumps or chills. So that feeling, like that feeling of, I felt that in my body first. That's what we want. That's what awe is. It's that it's before your brain can react, your body is reacting. So maybe you get chills. Maybe there's some perspiration on the palms. Maybe you feel some warmth in your stomach, chest, or up on your head. So what we're looking to design for is to create those moments of awe. And awe, in fact, is if you feel a sense of awe, people are more likely to feel connected to one another. They are proven to feel more open to new messages. They are proven to be more likely to retain messages. So those three things alone are what we seek out to do in every event that we build, right? Like you want people to feel connected to each other because you're bringing them all together from all around the world for a meeting, right? You want them to be more open to the message that you're sharing because ideally when you create an experience, you want people to leave different than how they arrived, right? Of course, yeah. And then you want them to remember what you said. And so awe makes all those things happen. So we're like at Ansera, we're like, we need to study awe. We need to figure out how to create it. And then we need to utilize it in this space that we're also passionate about in events.
So okay, then my question for you is, since you're designing for like a huge group of people, I'm assuming, like, what's your usual range of people that you guys work with in terms of groups?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it can be anywhere from a group of 25 to a group of like 5,000, 10,000. So it's a pretty big range. And we work with a lot of clients that are able to kind of fall within that spectrum.
Okay, so what's that look like then? Because obviously, like, everyone's different when they walk into a room. So your journey to finding like awe for like people, that's not a small order. That's a pretty big task. And like, how do you capture awe for 5,000 people? And do you like research like everyone? Like, how does that work?
No, it's such a great question. And it's a big question that we're still seeking answers. But what I can tell you is that we have developed a handful of really useful tools utilizing some of the latest research and experience design, the study of awe, the study of psychology, and as you mentioned before, distraction. All of this together has allowed us to create frameworks that we can use to run diagnostics on how effective is your agenda at creating for those peaks and valleys we talked about before of cognitive load as well as engagement, which are both contributors to awe, as well as things like what is the makeup of the group that's coming? If we can run a diagnostic on your registration list to see things like titles, generational implication. Some of our clients will give us like, this is how many millennials we have. This is Gen Z. They put their birthday in. So we know, right? And then we're able to run that through our analysis to see what is most likely to resonate with these different groups. And how do we plan for that through these different elements of the experience? Because everybody's on their own journey. And you're exactly right. Like, how do you make 5,000 people feel awe? It feels so specific to one person and their experience, but studies actually say that there are a handful of things that are actually quite unifying about awe. There are things like, they're called like the 8 pillars of awe, right? And there's some studies out of UC Berkeley that explore this in more detail, but some of the ones that we focus on are things like experiencing life, like seeing life, whether it's like birth even, or things like darkness, like death, for example. Like both of those are proven to pretty unilaterally create a sense of awe because we don't understand it. Things like beauty or things in vast scale. So things like the Grand Canyon are often told like, oh, I felt a sense of awe. It's because it's so massive that I can't quite comprehend it. Okay. And then there are things like this concept called collective effervescence, which is where, and you might have heard that term before, but that's where you have a lot of people together doing the same thing. And that can create that feeling of awe, whether it's present in, since the beginning of time, worship, right? Like big groups of people worshiping together and feeling that sense of connection. You actually start in groups of people that are doing the same thing at a baseball stadium, football stadium, concerts, festivals, events. When you get a group of people together and they're all focused on one thing, brainwaves start to look similar to one another. Their heart rates start to sync up a little bit. And then there's a connective exchange of chemicals like oxytocin and these other like happy chemicals get released into your brain when you're in these collective groups. And so a group of 5,000 at a meeting, that's a perfect place to facilitate that type of moment.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess my next question for you is, okay, so you guys basically are able to do the heavy lifting and figuring out how people might respond to things in real time. But how do you get the people who are like, the C-suite people, your stakeholders, to be like, obviously they're thinking about like money, ROI, blah, 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 blah. So how do you translate that to being like this, you want this, want this too. Let us bridge this for you. So how do you kind of, I don't want to say convince, but how do you get them on board with that? Like whatever it is your plan is.
Yes, it's a great question. I think what I've noticed when working with executives is that you're right. They are thinking about the bottom line. They are thinking about the investment and the ROI, the ROE, right?
Right.
And I think at times as an industry, we suffer from a lack of data. Like we have a lot of gut feelings, right? Like if you've been in the industry for a long time, I just know that if I make this decision with how this is laid out or how this agenda is flowing, like I know it's right somewhere, right? And that comes from seeing it work over and over and over again. But where is the science? Where is the data that's teaching you that hunch is correct? Now, the exciting part is a lot of our diagnostics are confirming a lot of what these people are feeling. So like kudos to our industry, but it makes it difficult to convince executives to invest more money into an event if it's all based on a feeling. Right?
Yeah. Like woo-woo. Like a woo-woo feeling.
Yes, exactly. And listen, I love myself some woo-woo, but yes, exactly.
Same, guilty.
We'll charge our crystals later. Yes. Do you have some? Girl,
I have a bunch next to me.
Oh my gosh, I have some right in my bed. Don't you worry. I'll send you some photos.
Love it.
So, but I think when convincing those executives that are bottom line driven, there's a couple of things that I think can really help that conversation. The first is that when engagement is not measured and not prioritized, on average, you can expect people to leave retaining only 10% of the message from your event. So if you were to put that into like very simple terms, say you spend $100,000 on your meeting, 90 grand is wasted because they didn't actually walk away with what you wanted them to hear, to learn, to know. You want them to behave differently than how they arrived, right? So that's a real that is a significant number that should, I think, really get a lot of executives' attention. Right? If we are losing 90% of our investment, that's a problem, right? But we have an answer. We have the way not only to measure it and give you some analytics on the front end, but then through surveys and through some kind of experimental cool technology, we can explore things like heart rate during a session. And we can explore things utilizing technology to better understand how engaged people actually were.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's been the piece. Like we have a lot of fantastic research on the front end, but so much of the challenge is like, how do we know it worked on the back end? And that's where we're spending a lot of our time now.
So what are you asking people after the fact so you know that it hit for them? Like, how are you able to measure that? Because obviously the goal is for them to remember and to be engaged and to want to come back. So how are you able to, and not everyone will answer the after emails. Like some people don't do it. So how are you able to like know for sure that this worked? Because that's also a factor. If people don't let you know, then the data is just gone, essentially, right?
Yes, you're exactly right. And I think the first thing is like, yes, not everybody's going to answer the survey, but a lot of people do. And so what you ask in those surveys is really important. And I think a lot of times we fall into the trap of like, what did you think of the food? How did you like the content? Right? Like, and like rate this from 1 to 10, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I think that we're getting better. I think there's some fantastic resources out there that are helping us to write better surveys. I know Claude and ChatGPT, all these resources are helping like to be better about that. But I think it's important before we even get into understanding how to measure that, we understand what the objective of the event was in the first place. And so if executives, to go back to that remark you made before, if executives are saying that the most important thing for us as a business right now is to increase a sense of loyalty and get people to renew their subscription with us next year. Let's just say that's an example, right? And we motivate them to renew their subscription next year by ensuring that they know these three things. They need to know this, they need to know this, and they need to go do this. Right? Whenever we do any event, you got to ask yourself, what do I want them to be doing? What do I want them to be thinking? And how do I want them to be behaving differently after the event has happened? Right? And so once that's been defined, then all of your surveys that are going to go out after are going to be able to lead your attendee to confirm, did I remember the things I wanted you to remember? Did they retain the thing? How likely are you to go do this as a result of your time with us? How do you feel comfortable doing, how comfortable do you feel doing this thing as a result of your time with us? And they'll tell you the truth, right? But then the other thing I would say is you can't rely on surveys alone, those post data pieces, because also the profile of the type of person that responds to surveys is different, isn't going to be an accurate representation of the entire group. So what I'd recommend is building relationships with the attendees that go to your events and identifying and asking, hey, would you be comfortable with wearing a heart monitor for this session? Would you be comfortable with us measuring the perspiration on your hands during this session? Would you feel comfortable answering much more detailed questions about the things we wanted you to retain? And then we can ask some of those nuanced questions about awe to these people that are already invested in making your event better. And you don't need a super huge sample size to get that done. Stats can get pretty statistically significant with, depending on the size of the group, 30 to 50 people that are conducting this research for you. And so there's a way to be able to do this at a reasonable scale with people that are invested in helping make your event get better. They're going to be critical. They're going to give you the answers. You can control the representation of that group and make sure it is representative of the larger group. And then you can start getting some of that real information and back it up with the diagnostic that's run in the beginning.
Okay. Go a little deeper into this. So AI and technology right now, how is that helping, like in the moment? Like how are you guys using that in the moment to help you make the awe factor a thing?
I gotta say that I'd say we're using AI a lot more in the planning process than we are during the event itself. Now, that's not to say that there isn't an opportunity, but when creating awe, we believe that the most important thing that we can do to increase our odds of creating awe is to understand awe as well as we can, understand those indicators of awe and those influencers of awe. And the way that we do that is through just research and research and research and research. So we've developed this tool in-house called the Awe Bot, is what we've called it. It's not, I guess, not the official name, but that's what we call it in-house. And it has almost 400 pieces of data that were, or articles, journals, scientific studies on distraction, awe, all these things. And then we're able to utilize that as a partner for developing and enhancing events based on these techniques that are able to be found through studies at various universities, et cetera. So we're using it a lot for that purpose. But I think that there's a ton of opportunity to leverage AI in the moment, as you mentioned, to personalize experiences, which is certainly a major trend with AI in events right now that I'm sure you're seeing. But I think that's honestly, that's just scraping the surface.
Yeah. Do you think that not just AI, but like just tech in general is being sought after for these more? Because I know people want to feel like more humanized experiences, but like the technology is what kind of makes it sometimes more awe in that respect. So are you seeing like where are people landing on that in terms of like people you've talked to?
Oh, it is. Yeah. I think it's very individual to like the client and the type of event that they're trying to plan, at least from what I'm seeing. But I'd say in general as a trend, like people are kind of getting back to basics a little bit. Like, I don't know if you've have heard that like my little sister, she's just turned 28 and she just bought a digital camera Like, I asked people about it, and like everybody's buying digital cameras now. Like, we are in the process of rejecting technology.
I already lived through that.
I know. But at some point, there's too many megapixels, and I don't want you to catch all of my blemishes. Sometimes we need to go a little bit, lower megapixel, and that's what the digital camera's doing. And they're loving this like vintage look.
Wait, like which version? Because there's like many digital cameras. The little ones?
Yeah, like the little ones that we used to carry around.
The
like
point and shoot? Oh my God.
Yes, with like the little... So I think that there's just like, and I say that partly, as a joke, but I think that there is this to what you shared, like kind of a little bit of a distance that people might want to place between them and some of the latest technology. So, and I don't believe...
Interesting.
I don't believe that technology needs to, like, that you need to spend a ton on technology on your event to create a sense of awe. Like, I don't think that awe equals more money. I don't think so. I think it means more creativity. I think it means more intention. And I think it's going to demand your time and attention. But it's not going to demand necessarily money or technology from you. We just have to be thinking about what are those makers of memories and awe, and then bake those in at the right time during the event.
Well, you dropped a lot of knowledge today, and I'm a little bit overwhelmed by everything.
I'm so sorry.
No. This is great. I'm just trying to be like, wow, where can I go with this?
No, you're good.
I guess my question for you next is like, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think is relevant to creating moments in events that are like, that spark, that do something that will try to change you? Because like I said, like, people go, they travel, they have to pause their lives to go to these things, and then they're expecting like something fascinating to happen to them. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So is there anything in that respect that we didn't speak on?
I think one of the most important things that if I could share to all the listeners that are developing or influencing on what an event layout looks like from a timeline perspective is that there's some very low-hanging fruit that you can do to make your event more likely to be remembered. And the first is this concept of what we call the box rule at Ansera. And it is that based on behavioral psychology, people do not remember things in a linear way in an event. They're going to remember the beginning, though more likely to remember the end. They're going to remember the best part of the event or the peak, and they're going to remember the worst part of the event. Right? The valley. And it creates this box, right? Okay. And so part of the challenge that I would give to our listeners is really work to identify what is the true beginning of your event. Is it when they walk into the room for the first time? Is it when they land at the airport? Is it when they first get that communication? Yes, right?
If you're leaving your person waiting at the airport, you failed.
That's right.
Can I just say that?
Yes, exactly.
You're leaving your guest waiting at the airport, and they don't know where to go in the first 10 minutes. You're done.
Yes, well, and that becomes one of the worst parts of the experience. That is also overlapping with the beginning of the experience, which they're already going to remember. And so, like, it's like really be thoughtful about how things move through time and where people are psychologically most likely to remember things. And the box rule is an easy way to remember that. And then find your valley. Every event has the valley. Right? Whether it's long registration lines, being stuck waiting at the airport, long transfers between various locations that you have to go to. Right. Think through how you can elevate, make that valley suck just a little bit less. And that in itself can be an unforgettable moment for people. And I think that's a very beautiful, tactical approach that you could apply right now in your work.
That's great. Thank you, EJ. I could talk to you forever. This is really fun for me. And I would love to have you back in the future if you guys have anything you guys want to discuss more, because this is great. I love this conversation.
I want to hang out with you all the time. This is the best. I'm having a blast with you.
We can make that work.
Yes.
Again, truly, this has been really fascinating for me as someone who, I go to a lot of events, I see a lot of things, and I'm just like, how do you make this interesting for everyone? And so this has been very insightful. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Eming. Thank you so much for having me.
Smart Star Radio, Smart Star Radio. Ready, set, here we go with another episode. Watch as we learn and grow. A Smart Star Radio, Smart Star Radio. Ready, set, here we go with another episode. Watch as we learn and grow. Starting smart is the action we design. Meeting other minds, how to better use our time. Leading, interceding, proceeding, they divine. It's believing, they conceding, so it goes on all the time.
You've been listening to Smart Start Radio, a a Smart Meetings production. Interested in being our next guest? Connect with us at editor@smartmeetings.com.